Imagine leading an unstoppable army of 70,000 men into the searing desert sun, completely confident you are about to crush a minor rebellion. You are the Roman emperor, commanding the greatest military machine on earth. But what you don't know is that your own generals are already plotting your downfall. In a matter of hours, you won't just lose the battle. You will be betrayed, completely surrounded, and dragged away in chains, becoming the first Roman emperor captured in battle in over 800 years. This is the story of Manzikert, the catastrophic betrayal that shattered an empire and ignited the Crusades. In the fateful year of 1071, the Byzantine Empire stood on the brink of absolute catastrophe. Yet, few within the gilded halls of Constantinople truly grasped the looming danger. For centuries, the Byzantines had ruled as the undisputed masters of the Eastern Mediterranean. They were the proud heirs of Rome, a beacon of continuity and Christian orthodoxy in a violently shifting world. But beneath the glittering mosaics and the imperial purple, the empire was rotting from the inside out. They were bleeding territory. In the west, Norman invaders were systematically stripping away their Italian holdings. But the real threat lay in the east. The empire was crippled by constant civil wars, bureaucratic corruption, and mercenary uprisings that had drained the treasury dry. The army, once the most disciplined fighting force in the world, had been neglected by paranoid bureaucrats who feared a strong military might overthrow them. Enter Emperor Romanos IV Diogenes. He was not a politician, he was a hardened soldier emperor. But his claim to the throne was precarious, built on a rushed marriage to the widowed empress. Romanos knew that to legitimize his rule, he needed a spectacular military victory. He needed to secure the crumbling eastern frontier. When Romanos marched his massive army east into the rugged Armenian highlands, he believed he was merely dealing with a routine frontier rebellion. He thought it would be a simple punitive expedition to chase away nomadic raiders. What he didn't know was that the sun-baked plains of Anatolia would soon shatter the illusion of Byzantine invincibility forever. Romanos led a sprawling force of roughly 40,000 to 70,000 men. On paper, it was an absolute juggernaut. The vanguard included the terrifying Varangian Guard, elite Norse and Anglo-Saxon mercenaries wielding massive two-handed battle axes capable of cleaving a man in half. Behind them marched heavily armored cataphracts cavalry, thousands of raw conscripts dragged from the provinces, and restless foreign mercenaries, including Pecheneg, Franks, and Normans. But this massive host carried a fatal flaw. The vital rear guard was commanded by Andronikos Doukas, a bitter political rival from a powerful family that despised the new emperor. It was a treacherous internal fracture that would soon doom them all. Waiting for them was the Seljuk Turkish army. They were led by the brilliant and ruthless Sultan Alp Arslan, a name that translates to the heroic lion. Alp Arslan had actually been marching south to fight his primary rivals in Egypt. But when he heard of the massive Roman army marching on his rear, he rapidly turned his forces north. Though significantly smaller in size, numbering perhaps 20,000 to 30,000 men, the Seljuks possessed a lethal advantage. They were unified by a fierce loyalty to their sultan, and they were hardened by years of relentless, unforgiving steppe warfare. They were a force of pure mobility. Unburdened by heavy supply trains, they were born in the saddle. They carried devastating composite bows that could pierce armor at terrifying distances. The clash commenced on a dry, dusty plain near the fortress of Manzikert on August 26th. The late summer heat was stifling. It baked the men in their iron armor, wearing down the heavy Byzantine troops before a single sword was drawn. The Seljuks initiated the engagement with lightning-fast, hit-and-run cavalry charges. Their approach was incredibly agile, grounded in rapid maneuver and psychological warfare. They peppered the Byzantine defenses relentlessly, unleashing thick clouds of arrows that literally blotted out the sun. Then, they wheeled away just as the heavy Roman cavalry prepared to countercharge. Alp Arslan's strategy became devastatingly clear. He had no intention of meeting the Byzantines in a traditional, static shield wall. Instead, He used his absolute superiority in mounted archery to wither down the larger force. He wanted to frustrate the Greeks, exhaust their heavy horses, and goad them into breaking their own defensive formations. Having suffered mounting losses, and seeing morale begin to fray under the endless rain of arrows, Romanos made a desperate choice. He steadied his ranks, ordered the imperial standards raised, and personally led a massive, all-or-nothing frontal attack. They advanced with thunderous force, driving their central strength deep into the Seljuk lines. But Alp Arslan was waiting for exactly this. The Seljuks executed a classic step feint. They retreated steadily, falling back into a massive crescent formation. It swallowed the Byzantine advance without ever offering a solid line to smash against. As Romanos pushed deeper into the blinding dust and suffocating heat, the trap quietly closed around him. On the peripheries, his Turkic mercenary flanks lagged behind. Alienated by a lack of pay, they were unwilling to fully commit against an enemy that looked, rode, and fought exactly like them. Some even defected on the spot. As evening approached and his troops grew dangerously exhausted, Romanos realized he had overextended his lines. He ordered the standards reversed, signaling a tactical withdrawal back to the fortified camp. Then, the empire completely dissolved into chaos. Remember Andronikos Doukas, the political rival commanding the rear guard? Instead of moving up to cover the emperor's vulnerable retreat, Doukas saw a golden opportunity for treason. He deliberately spread a rumor through the ranks that Romanos had fallen in battle. Completely abandoning the field, Doukas marched his fresh troops back to Constantinople to seize the throne for his own family. With the catastrophic breakdown of the rear guard, Romanos was completely exposed and surrounded. Alp Arslan seized the moment, ordering his wings to snap shut. The Seljuks surged forward with ferocious discipline, cutting off any hope of a Byzantine retreat. Absolute panic followed. The once proud Roman legions broke. They ran, but it was too late. They were systematically slaughtered by pursuing horsemen in the fading daylight. The emperor fought valiantly, refusing to flee. He swung his sword into the twilight until his horse was killed beneath him, and he was deeply wounded in the arm. By the end of the day, the Byzantine field army ceased to exist as a coherent entity. Emperor Romanos vanished under a pile of bodies, only to be dragged into Seljuk captivity the next morning in chains. He was the first Roman emperor captured in battle in 800 years. When the bloodied emperor was brought before Alp Arslan, the Sultan famously placed his boot on Romanos' neck, forcing him to kiss the ground. But what followed shocked everyone. Alp Arslan asked the emperor, "What would you do if I were brought before you as a prisoner?" Romanos bitterly replied, "Perhaps I'd kill you or exhibit you in the streets of Constantinople." The Sultan smiled. "My punishment is far heavier," he said. "I forgive you and set you free." The victors stood stunned amid the wreckage of the Byzantine war machine. They had not merely won a battle, they had shattered an empire's soul. The geopolitical landscape of the world was reshaped in a single afternoon. The disaster at Manzikert ripped the vital, wealthy heartland of Anatolia from Roman control forever, permanently severing their greatest source of manpower and grain. Decades later, a desperate plea for help from Constantinople to the Pope in Rome to recover these very lands would ignite the First Crusade, plunging the East and West into centuries of holy war. The Roman Empire would survive for a few more centuries, fading into a shadow of its former glory. But after the bloody sands of Manzikert, it would never truly recover. Make sure you are subscribed and have the bell notification on so you don't miss the truth behind the myth.